Hi, this is The Greatest Story Ever Played. I'm Dan, and with me is Connor from Lore Party.
Howdy. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, so today we're going to spend some time talking about Days Gone. Also, at the end, we're going to talk more about Lore Party, so definitely stick around for that, hear about their awesome podcast they have going over there. Also, I was fortunate enough to be a guest on there maybe a year ago about where we
It was a while back, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a minute, so
Yeah.
it's fun being on mic again together, but where
Definitely.
we talked about Uncharted, so that was fun. If you like that game, go check that out for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess with that, we'll jump into Days Gone. Would you want to grab the description for that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. First of all, I just got to say I'm psyched to be talking about this game with somebody because I kind of felt like for a while I was one of the only people I knew who had played it. No one else at Lore Party has played it yet, so I've been trying to get someone over there to play it with me, or at least catch up with me so we could do some episodes on it. So I was psyched when you reached out and you mentioned that you were planning on playing it, but it is, it's an open world action adventure game. Came out 2019, I think, last year or a year before. Yeah, 19. I'm
right.
19. Yeah, 19. My quarantine brain has me completely losing track of all concept of time. But
yeah, time's not real anymore.
time is not real anymore, exactly. But no, the game is actually really underrated, but we'll get into that later. But what it does do is it puts you in the shoes of a motorcycle outlaw turned post-apocalyptic drifter and bounty hunter named Deacon St John, and he kind of makes his way through the wilderness of the Pacific Northwest after a devastating global pandemic has turned millions, maybe billions of people into bloodthirsty, cannibalistic, zombie-like thingers. And it's honestly it's really cool. It's really immersive. It's all about surviving, but also trying to find a reason to live. I like to boil it down to that. It's not just surviving. It's finding a reason to keep going is a big part of the story. So, I'm excited to break it down and see where the journey takes us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Me too. I was excited when I'd found someone who'd played it because I was like, this has been on my radar for a while, but I hadn't known someone who'd played it yet, so it worked out perfect for that for sure.
Totally.
And yeah, love that description. That's great. So I guess last kind of little background stuff before jumping into the story itself, which also we're going to spoil the shit out of this game. So if you haven't played it...
Fair warning. just so you know.
Yeah, everything's getting covered. So definitely play this game before proceeding or be ready for spoilers. But yeah, last bit of background information is this was developed by Ben Studio, who are primarily known for doing Uncharted, The Golden Abyss, and Resistance Retribution. So these are actually PSP and like PS Vita titles of other like first-party PlayStation games. So they didn't actually even have a game come out in the PS3 era. I saw some for like PS1, PS2, but then this is their first PS4 game. So it almost feels like their studio almost reawakening or something like that. Like it seems like Sony kind of had them on side projects before this.
I was thinking that Days Gone was sort of Ben Studio's debut. It was like their first really fully fledged IP, like their first new intellectual property that wasn't like a spin-off or just an entry, like a mobile or handheld entry in another series. So it was a big kind of step for them, almost a gamble. It was like, hey, this is the game that could make or break our reputation, and I applaud them. I think they did a great job with it. But
yeah, no, I agree. And cool just seeing another like studio of the Sony studios like hopping out with a new IP. It's like you've got, Insomniac getting Spider-Man going, or, Naughty Dog, of course, slaying everything they do, or,
course, yeah.
or even like Guerrilla Games with getting like Horizon Zero Dawn going or whatever.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's cool that like another one of their studios is like, hey, we've got a new IP too, and
Oh, you can't forget about Sucker Punch with Ghost of Tsushima. Just so many
Yes.
first-party studios completely knocking it out of the park with these new IPs or really cool projects. So keep slaying Sony. I am a Sony man, I will say. I'm kind of a Sony fanboy, so keep it up. Good stuff.
Me too. Totally Sony fanboy. It's like if people want to play Xbox and all that, I have no problem with that. And like I have
nothing wrong with that.
I have a Switch. I'm all for that. But Sony definitely has what they like to make and what I like to play are basically the same thing.
Hell yeah.
And then last, I guess, real background thing is this game has a lot of characters, but we wanted to just highlight the kind of couple biggest ones that will matter, which are, of course, Deacon St John, who Connor mentioned off top. He's a drifter. Nowadays, in pre-apocalypse, he was like an outlaw biker, motorcycle gang member type guy. Then we've got Sarah, who is Deacon's wife. She's also a researcher. That's what she did beforehand. And then we've got Boozer, who's Deacon's best friend and is also in the same bike gang. So those are kind of your big people you're with throughout the game or have big parts in the game. And you meet other people along the way, and we'll talk about them as they arise.
Yeah, other characters come and go in Deacon's life, but definitely his pillars, like the people that hold his life up, were his wife Sarah and his best friend Boozer. Like those were that's his closest circle. Everyone else is kind of like a secondary player.
Yep, 100%. Yeah. And actually, I guess we had one more thing we wanted to talk about before getting into the story, which is obviously there's lots of gunplay in this game, and you can destroy this world in a lot of ways. So we took to Twitter and asked what are people's favorite weapons in this game, but let's start first with you, Connor. What were your favorites?
Oh man, like you mentioned, there's just so many to choose from. It was honestly hard for me to pick favorites, but I just honestly, these aren't even favorites; they're more like honorable mentions. Just like, I can't pick favorites, but like
fair.
I do have to shout out the little stubby shotgun. It's technically, it counts as a sidearm, like Deacon carries it in like his leg holster, but it's a little sawn off lever action shotgun. It is so slick. It's like that thing that Arnold uses in Terminator 2. It's like one of those. And it's just so awesome because he can like shoot it from his motorcycle as Deacon's driving. So I always thought that was really fun to use. There's an assault rifle called the MWS, which is modeled after the real life Steyr AUG, a gun I really like. That was really fun to use, and it was like that was the first primary weapon I got in the game where I felt like, okay, now we're talking. This is like a real killer. I'm actually kicking some ass with this thing. I feel equipped and ready. So that was a nice feeling gun for me early on. Last shout out to another sidearm, a pistol called the Eliminator. It's just so slick. It's awesome as hell. It's like this big, heavy caliber pistol. It looks like a cross between like the Desert Eagle in real life, a little bit like a 1911 45. It's just one of those big, loud, badass guns. I just love the feel of that type of weapon. So those were some of my favorites.
Oh yeah, being able to get that power right there is huge.
Feel the power in your hands. Yes.
That's awesome.
What about you?
For me, my two favorites were in the beginning of the game. I used the crossbow a lot.
Oh, of course.
I played pretty like stealth heavy at the beginning, and so a lot of sneaking up and arrowing guys. And then later in the game, when I got the 50 cal, the BFG sniper rifle, I really loved that. Put the silencer on there. It made me stop using my crossbow. That was like my go-to at that point. I was like, all right, cool.
You were cutting loose at that point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So
nice.
Really, really enjoyed both of those. Also, yeah, along the way, there are lots. I think I had the Eliminator for a lot, too, of just having a pistol with huge knockdown power. That was super helpful because, that beginning pistol, it's like you're having to hit them 3, 4, 5 times to get them.
Yeah, no, your first pistol or two are just complete pea shooters, so it's nice to get like a real beast.
Yeah. So... those were some of my favorites, but there are so many games. I felt so many guns in this game. I felt like, which we'll see in a second when we start going through them. But when people were writing in all their favorite weapons, I was like, I didn't use a lot of these. I probably need to go back and grab some of these other guns because they sound great.
Yeah, it was really cool to see what else people were using. Like, I thought a lot of the time, like, oh yeah, that was a cool gun. I just didn't use it a lot. And like, there were some examples of like, you actually used that one? I barely touched that one. So yeah, it was cool to see what everyone else considered their favorites.
Yeah, cool. I guess we'll start with Nikki. on Twitter, and she says she really liked using the knife, whatever hardcore bat you can craft, which, oh yeah, those were dope.
Crafted melee weapons were great.
Oh yeah, especially at the end of the game when you got those ones from Corey. Those were sick.
Mm-hmm.
I do love melee. Otherwise, the shotgun, the combat one you can buy at Wizard Island. Also, the sniper rifle was very useful. So, good variety there.
Daniel on Twitter says his favorite was any weapon that has freaking ammo. Quote, I ran out of it constantly, unquote. I feel that. That was, yeah. You gotta be careful with where you put your bullets in that game.
Yeah, at the beginning, I felt like I really had, especially at the beginning, I felt like I really had to count my shots because I was like, I don't want to end up without any bullets and just like running around trying to like find shit.
It seems like the better weapons, like the more advanced or higher grade weapons you get, they just make you able to carry more ammo for them. Like they're just the maximum ammo is higher. So yeah, the further on you get in the game, the more bullets you could carry, generally speaking. So it gets better.
Yeah,
it gets better.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Yeah, it gets better. Sam on Twitter said my favorite weapon is definitely the baseball bat axe.
Definitely agree. It's a hell of a weapon. I always wanted to have one of those on me at any given time. I wanted to have one on me.
Oh yeah, that was like one of my first upgrades. Once I had like scrap or whatever, I'm like, all right, I gotta just do this. Like, just having that in a pinch is so helpful.
Absolutely. Diego on Twitter says the US 556 because it was in the E3 trailer and it's very swag. Absolutely true. They call it the US 556. It's basically like the M4 rifle, and it's cool. It's slick as hell. It's easy to use, and yeah, in the early E3 trailer, Deacon used it to gun down a bunch of freakers, and it's really cool to see in action.
Oh yeah. Zombie Guts on Twitter said I had a lot of fun with both the Chicago chopper and the RPD. Mowing down hordes with those weapons and 2 birds, 1 bullet is peak fun gaming. Yeah, Chicago chopper is great. Oh man,
that was a favorite of mine too. Definitely shout out Chicago chopper.
Oh yeah, once I got that, it was like when there was groups of zombies or hordes, I was like, okay, I'm not that afraid now. Like because its magazine is just so big, and its rounds actually do something. That was huge.
Speaking of which, Jerome on Twitter seconds that. He says, definitely the Tommy gun. Quote, need to get rid of a horde quickly. That's what Chicago chopper is what the game calls it, but it's the Thompson submachine gun with that classic like Chicago gangster drum magazine. It's awesome. It's so cool.
So, yeah. Oh yeah. Greg on Twitter says I swear by the crossbow. I agree.
Crossbow is the way of life. Jashi on Twitter says the PDW is probably my favorite weapon and use it more often over my primary. Interesting choice, but I agree. The PDW is probably the best pistol in the game. It's kind of a late game acquisition. It's accurate. It's powerful. It's easy to aim. It fires fast. Large magazine. It's just the best pistol in the game, hands down. You get it later on. So that was a favorite of mine as well. Good choice.
Catnip on Twitter says I love the Liberator shotgun and my Beastie sniper rifle.
Nice.
Yeah.
Polish Wolf on Twitter says the cowboy. 2-word answer, just the cowboy. The cowboy is an interesting choice. I actually barely touched that gun, but it's interesting. It's a neat little gun. It's like a revolver carbine. It's like an Old West rifle, but with a revolving chamber. It's weird. You have to just check it out in action. But
yeah, I didn't even realize that one was in the game. So when I saw that, I was like, I gotta go try that gun out. That sounds sweet.
Yeah, I bought it and tried it out my first playthrough. I was like, yeah, I'm not really into this, but it was definitely memorable. I was like, that's an interesting gun. So
yeah, that's cool. Todd on Twitter said the 50 cal BFG.
Oh, of course. He and you and he were of the like mind on that one. That it's a popular gun. 8-bit on Twitter really enjoyed using the spike bat. Again, there's nothing more satisfying than just swinging that bat around and knocking some skulls out. It's good stuff. Good times.
Oh yeah. Zombie Slayer on Twitter said the US 556, so another vote over there.
Another vote for that. Kevin on Twitter says Chicago chopper. Score another one for the Chicago chopper.
And then, lastly, maybe laying down the authority, Deacon St John on Twitter says Chicago Chopper. So
there it is. That's the definitive answer.
Yeah,
Deacon himself says Chicago Chopper all the way.
Yep. So looks like that's the winner for him. So that's great. But thanks everyone for writing those in. Cool seeing. Yeah. Again, variety of ways that people decide to take down the zombies.
Mm-hmm. Fun stuff.
So now we'll get into the recap of the game itself. We'll start a little bit chronologically as how the game went, but we're gonna abandon that pretty quick after this because being an open world game, you can obviously play this game a lot of different ways, and we tried to, set it up in a way that hopefully makes the most sense, kind of hearing it and stuff. So that's kind of our aim. That's what we're going with. But we will start where the game starts, which is all hell's breaking loose. You're in the middle of a city. Shit's going down. There's chaos. There's fire. There's screaming. There's zombies running around. It's insane. And you see that Sarah has been stabbed in the side and is losing a lot of blood. Boozer is also hurt, and Deacon's trying to corral them and get them up to a roof of a building to be able to try to flag down a helicopter to evacuate them, really amid this shit show that they're in.
Right, civilization's just kind of falling apart around them, and I'm guessing this takes place. The city is Farewell, Oregon. I think that's like kind of the urban center where they lived. But luckily, Deacon does manage to get the attention of a helicopter, and it lands on the roof. But the Nero worker. Nero is a acronym. I don't remember what it stands for. It's basically FEMA. It's
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a guy in a hazmat suit, calls himself O'Brien, and he says he can take Sarah, but only one other person. So only 2 more people total. So it would have to be like Deacon and Sarah, and they'd leave Boozer behind, or vice versa. So there's a choice to be made, and not a good one.
Yeah, not a good one. Deacons can't make this choice. And so he tells Sarah to wait there. He's going to go talk to Boozer. He gives her his Mongrels ring, which is his motorcycle gang. He gives her the ring and is like, you're going to give me this back when you see me. I've got to go talk to Boozer. And Boozer is like, I heard what's going on. You need to get up there. And Deacon's like, no, I'm not leaving you here alone. And so he goes back to there, tells O'Brien, get her out of here. Tell us where you're going. He says a refugee camp that's going to be nearish by. And so Deacon's like, okay, I'll meet you guys there. Sarah is upset, but I think Deacon made the right call, and definitely like a good bro call for sure of, hey, Boozer, I'm going to stick with you, and we'll meet up with her later.
It did seem like he made the best possible decision he could make under the circumstances. Like, Sarah would be getting to safety. She'd be getting medical attention. But Boozer was also wounded and couldn't be expected to look after himself. So, Deacon thought, Sarah's safe. I need to keep Boozer safe. We'll meet her later. Like, we'll figure it out. So it was the best possible call he could make, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I wonder if he was hoping that Boozer wouldn't have heard that, and he would have like pushed Boozer on the helicopter and been like, "See you guys there." Like,
oh yeah,
I wonder if he was hoping it could do that, but Boozer already knew.
That's possible.
Because that feels like a Deacon thing to do. Is like, I'll fight through hell to get to my friends, but like that kind of thing. I could see that.
That's possible. Yeah, good point. But no, after that, it's basically like a smash cut sort of fast forward. It's actually been a little over 2 years, I guess, or roughly 2 years since civilization collapsed due to the freaker infestation. And at this point in time, Deacon and Boozer, they're kind of just on their own. We don't really know what happened with Sarah yet. It's not really made clear yet. All we know is that Deacon and Boozer are just kind of scratching out an existence together. And part of that existence that they're making for themselves is hunting people who are wanted dead or alive by other people. They have become sort of like the new old Western style bounty hunters. And when we joined them early on in this part of the game, they're chasing after a guy named Leon, who we get from context clues. He is wanted for stealing some medicine, like some drugs, from a nearby survivors camp. So they're hot on the trail of this guy, and they actually come across Leon's accomplice, a woman whose name escapes me, but she's been like beaten half to death, and she says, "Oh, this was Leon," and then she dies. And so Leon is such a piece of shit. He's such a bad guy that he not only steals from this camp with his accomplice, but then they ride away, and then he kills her, screws her over, and then runs off on his own. So Deacon and Boozer continue to give chase.
Yes, so they give chase. Leon goes by. This gives you your kind of first taste of a bike chase that you have going on. You chase Leon down. You ultimately trade some shots with him, and then he runs off into the woods, and you pursue. In pursuing, you also learn about tracking skills, which ends up being another feature in the game. Ultimately, you make it to Leon. You kill him. He gives you a map as to where the stuff he stole is, and Deacon and Boozer head back to the bikes, but in their shootout previously, Deacon's fuel pump got shot out. So his bike can't move, so he stashes it under some brush, and him and Boozer are going to go and look for a new fuel pump.
Right, so they ride like kind of toward a mountain range that separates the one section of the map from another one. It's kind of like there's this border between the Cascade Wilderness and the sort of the another part of like more dry upper plateau area, and they pass through this tunnel where they stop and they burn some freaker nests. So you learn this other mechanic of the game where freakers during the day, because they're kind of nocturnal, during the day they find places to sort of just bed down, and they gather in these dark, dank corners, and they create freaker nests. And a big part of their job, they actually get paid to burn these freaker nests out, so you learn how to do that on the way. And eventually the two of them make it to this really cool little location where it's like part motel, part auto garage, sort of a pit stop or kind of place on this rural highway. And but it's unfortunately, of course, the place is completely infested with freakers. So they have to come up with a plan to get Deacon inside so he can look for a spare fuel pump.
Yes, so the plan they come up with is Boozer is going to go by in his motorcycle, make a bunch of noise, and try to draw as many of them away from this pit stop, kind of to the, other side of that area. Deacon will be then able to sneak in, grab their stuff. Hopefully only a few freakers are around, and he'll be able to kind of make his way. And their plan works
for the most part, yeah.
Yeah, Deacon's able to sneak in. There's 5 or 10 freakers, something manageable, not like the 40 or so that were there before. So Deacon makes his way through. He finds the fuel pump, but then on his radio he hears Boozer in distress. He's like, "Get off me, you fucking rippers!" Like, fuck out of here, that kind of stuff. And so Deacon's like, "Oh shit, rippers, I gotta go." So he runs up to where Boozer had gone, and he sees the rippers have Boozer held down. They've got a blowtorch to his arm, and they are burning off the tattoos on his arms.
Yeah, it's pretty gruesome. It's pretty hard to watch. But this is also our first introduction to the Rippers as enemies. They're among the first human enemies the Deacon encounters in the game. They're completely psychotic survivors who have ritualistically scarred themselves. They're basically like a cult. They're like a doomsday cult that actually worships the Rippers. No, sorry. That actually worships the Freakers, the infected people. So we'll learn more about them later, but this is an interesting introduction to an enemy faction where you get a sense of what they do and how they operate, and part of that is holding a man down and burning his arm off, basically. Luckily, Deacon manages to kill them, and he rescues Boozer. They take his bike, they take the part he found, and they hightail it out of there back to their hideout so Boozer can rest up.
Yes. So they do that, and they've shown that they're kind of a crazy foe. You would imagine that, people you might fight in the apocalypse might want the things you have or, anything like that. But the Rippers are basically, as you said, they worship the Freakers, and is that the old world is dead. So, like, they wanted to get rid of the tattoos on Boozer's arm because tattoos were part of a dead world. You shouldn't have those anymore. They don't have names anymore. Like, just weird shit like this. So they're a really violent, crazy cult kind of thing. Definitely very problematic. But yeah, Deacon kills them off. That's good. Make it to the hideout. Boozer needs to rest up because his arm is super fucked up.
It's so bad that Deacon can't do anything about it with what they have, so he has to go find some actual medical supplies to do something about it. In the process, he visits a Nero checkpoint, an old facility that Nero had set up back during the collapse, and finds some bandages. He also visits a nearby camp run by a guy named Mark Copeland, who becomes sort of a central side character. Copeland's an interesting guy. He's like a sort of he makes me think of like a right-wing militia survivalist doomsday prepper type guy, kind of like he runs his own radio frequency. He calls it Radio Free Oregon. You're listening to Radio Free Oregon. Don't believe the lies. That's he's like that conspiracy nut type guy. But he's also an important part of the camp infrastructure he's like the guy in charge of this little survival enclave where people live safe from the freakers outside. And we don't see the beginning of Deacon's relationship with Copeland, but we can tell that they have a history. They've definitely dealt with each other before. And Deacon has found out that the bike that he stashed under some bushes and branches is gone. he tracks it. He tracks like some he sees some markings on the ground. He tracks them back to Copeland's camp. So he realizes that motherfucker Copeland stole my bike. And so there's some tension immediately between them.
Yes. Yeah. So, there's tension. And Copeland basically is like, well, my guys didn't no, it was your bike. We wouldn't have taken it if we were known it was yours.
It was just lying there. What else were we supposed to do?
Right. Exactly. And so Copeland is like, well, here's the parts we do have. Some of it was already parted out. Sorry, guy. But, we can try to get you good parts, but we need you to work for us. And Deacon, of course, is pissed about this, but he also doesn't really have a choice. It's, okay, I can, not do this, but it's not going to really work for him. And also, earlier, Boozer had said, we need to get out of this area. We've been here long enough. We should really just head north. And Deacon reluctantly kind of agreed, and he's like, all right, fine, we should move on. And so Deacon's kind of like, okay, if we can get Boozer's arm right, if we can get my bike right, we'll just head north, we'll be done with this shithole area, and we'll start a new life somewhere else. So that's sort of their aim at this point in the game.
And this situation with Copeland, kind of like trading work for bike parts, that starts this major central mechanic to the game where you as the player playing as Deacon, you're constantly trying to upgrade and improve your motorcycle. And it's not just your average chopper or hog that a outlaw biker would ride on. It's an apocalyptic, it's an apocalypse special type bike. It's like part motorcycle, part dirt bike, where it's really specialized for off-road travel. So it's sophisticated, and you'll be spending a lot of the game, buying new upgrades for it to make it more fuel efficient, easier to handle on rough terrain, things like that. So that kind of kickstarts that process too. But yeah, also Deacon needs to get his bike together so that he and Boozer can eventually leave and go north. But another part of that is, working with the camps. There's another camp nearby called the Hot Springs Camp, run by a tough old lady named Ada Tucker. And she is a very no-nonsense, very doesn't take any BS type camp leader. In fact, Hot Springs Camp has a bit of a reputation in this game world, where if you live there, you're going to be worked. You're going to be working hard, breaking your back constantly to earn there. Now, I assume people in Copeland's camp also earn their keep and they work hard, but at Hot Springs, Ada Tucker is basically like a slave driver. So it's not a fun time to live there.
Yeah, it seems like if you're not someone who can fight and is a soldier there, then you're like
Right.
a slave, basically.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So not a great spot.
The upside
either.
is, though, Hot Springs has a good armory. So Deacon's interest in Hot Springs is that if he works for them, they can give him better guns. So there is still a trade-off there.
No, yeah, there totally is. I think that I forget the name of it, but the machine gun I got there, I used that for.
That's
quite
where I
a
first
while.
got the MWS, my assault rifle I really liked. So
Yeah, I used that for a large portion of the game after I got it here because it was pretty effective and I didn't actually have to spend that much money to get it since you got it so
Exactly.
early in the game. Like
Yep.
that was huge.
But Tucker, as a consequence of running the type of camp that she runs, Ada Tucker is always on the lookout for more people to recruit, quote unquote recruit, putting it generously, into her camp. What she's really looking for is more labor, though. So she gets word from her scouts that there's a young lady, kind of barely older than a kid, living out on her own out in the wilderness, which is kind of unheard of. Like, it's been 2 years. If someone is still living out there, kids don't usually last that long, is basically the subtext that's made clear there. Like, it's rare for a young person or a teenager or a child to be found alive out in the shit, as they call it. So Tucker asks Deacon to go find her, and he does. And it's a young lady named Lisa. When Deacon brings her back to Hot Springs, Lisa doesn't really like it there. As we've established, it's not a friendly place. So
Yeah, so after some time there, like Deacon tries to check in on her, and she doesn't like it. So ultimately, on a work detail, Lisa ends up getting captured by a Ripper, and Deacon has to go and rescue Lisa from the Rippers. Not a great spot for Lisa. She's super distressed by this, and it's like, I can't go back to Hot Springs. Like, I can't go back there. Don't make me go back. And Deacon is like, I can't just leave you in the shit though either. Right. And so Deacon makes a call. He gives a call to Ricky, who is from a camp called Lost Lake. And Deacon says, hey, can you please meet me? I have someone to bring to you. I don't expect to get paid for this or anything, but they need help. And so Ricky comes. Deacon and her clearly have a history, and there's not animosity exactly, but they're not particularly friendly either, right. I would say. But she decides to take Lisa. She recognizes Lisa's just a kid. She doesn't, I don't know. She just got captured by Rippers, and she doesn't deserve to be screwed over. So Ricky agrees to take Lisa to Lost Lake. And I guess at this point, too, to kind of pull these camps together. So we've learned in these camps there are a couple different things that you can do sort of as your side activities in the game. So we did a bounty example in some sense when we found Lisa. It's a little different because it's not chasing down someone who stole supplies like Leon, but it's still searching for a person. We also learned about Burning Freaker Nest. We also have fought marauders who are just around at times, and so we have to take them out. I'm trying to think of what else are early task.
Yeah, that mostly sums up the early game side activities, like clearing out ambush camps full of human enemies. That's a big part of it. Yeah, freaker nests, bounties. That's what Deacon sort of occupies himself with early on while he's getting his bike and Boozer ready to travel. And Lisa's the situation with Lisa, Copeland, Tucker, that all kind of works into the framework of the early game as well.
Yeah. These are places where you get bits of story, you upgrade your equipment, and you have tasks to do.
And the entire time you're earning basically cash, but it's called camp credits. You're just building up resources. Like, you're building up access to better bike parts, you're building up access to better guns, you're collecting freaker ears that you sell for camp credits, and you're also building trust with the camps, which kind of unlocks better upgrades. So everything that's happening is kind of building Deacon toward progression, like a progression toward the later levels.
Yeah, totally. I like that a lot about the trust that you build in the camp, and then it affects what they sell you. So I really like that, especially at Hot Springs when you first go there, and then once you have enough trust, they'll sell you better weapons. Because to me, that made a lot of sense. If they don't trust you, like, they're not going to sell you like the best weapon in the in the camp or whatever. But like, hey, we've got these weapons for you, kind of thing. So I thought that was a cool mechanic. Or a good
it felt
idea.
pretty natural. It felt believable to that kind of situation. Like, in a post-apocalypse, it's like there's no money really. There's no central currency, so it's more like, what can you do for me tangibly? What can you pitch in? Because it's all communal. It's like either you're helping each other or you're hurting each other. There's no middle ground. So I thought that was pretty cool. Good system. But
so yeah, I guess from here we did want to pause. We've mentioned the side activities a little bit, but wanted to talk about what our favorite side activities are. So what kind of these were your kind of favorite?
Yeah, I gotta say I just really enjoyed motorcycle chases. The way you handle the drifter bike in the game and like just sort of tracking someone and chasing them down and firing from behind the handlebars, it's really cool. So that's always a fun activity. But I think my favorite though is just tracking down and burning freaker nests, because that was like the most immersive activity for me. It's like I'm actually living in this world where if I want to travel through the wilderness safely, it helps to get rid of these hazards on the road. And a lot of the hazards are like, hey, there's an old barn over there full of freakers, and if I chuck a Molotov into it, it'll be a little safer to come through here later. So I like that immersive quality of, I'm just going to walk up, burn this place down, and then take a few steps back and just be ready to shoot anything that comes out. And that was always pretty fun for me. So that burning freaker nests was one of my favorite things to do early on.
Yeah, I thought that was really satisfying. There was something really satisfying about, like, once you cleared a zone, too. So it's like, oh, cool, I cleared the 5 in this area. Now I can fast travel through this area if I wanted to later. Or even just knowing that, like, you're not going to get surprised by a ton of
It cuts down the population.
Kind of
and you feel like you've actually made a tangible impact on the game world. Like you mentioned, that's only possible if the route is safe. So I like that. It's like you make the game a little simpler for yourself, and you kind of free yourself up more when you do activities like that.
Yeah, I was really glad I got into clearing all of these early on, because later on in the game there were times where it was like, it's easier to just fast travel this part, and I was really glad I cleared my way, because there were some parts in the game where it was like, okay, you got to go to one end of the map to the next one, so it was really helpful to just be able to fast travel those sometimes. Yeah, no, that was great. For me, my favorite was going through the ambush camps of the Marauders. I liked... They're all very the same. They always have, 10 to 15 guys at them. Deacon will realize it's an ambush camp, and he gets angry, and he's like, fucking ambushing drifters. How about this?
Right.
How about you get ambushed? Like, so he always has this kind of same line of anger, but I found it really satisfying, especially when you were able to stay covert as long as possible. Like, there was one where I think I might have killed like 10 of the 15 people in one area. Like, I'd hit one with an arrow, another guy would be like, oh, there's a body. He'd come and look, and then I'd kill him, and it just kept happening. And so at the end, there was just like a pile of bodies in one spot, and it felt so satisfying that I didn't like blow my cover. They're like, oh my God, someone's here. Dead. Oh my God, someone's here.
Yeah, I did like how Deacon would sort of like display his animosity. It was like, you assholes give drifters like me a bad name, like when you ambush people on the road. So you're dead. You're all fucked now. I'm gonna kill you all. So it was cool, like kind of getting that insight into his mind. I like that. Yeah, his righteous
definitely. Anger almost kind of thing, which was cool. I like that. Zombie Guts on Twitter said, hordes were my favorite all the way. I think that is largely due to the fact that I felt like I was working towards this the whole game. Nearly every upgrade, be it perk, weapon, Nero injector, crafting recipe, it felt like I was moving one step closer to
100% agree. Like, if I'm just talking about my early game favorite activities, I'll burning freaker nests and motorcycle chases, sure, but the horde combat as like an end game gameplay mechanic, it's amazing. That's what really foundationally makes this game what it is. So that's a great answer.
Yeah, I thought that was...
In fact, Adam on
explained.
Twitter agrees. Hordes were definitely my favorite. And Sabrina on Twitter adds horde clearing. So everyone loves killing hordes in this game. That's a really big selling point of Days Gone, is when you make yourself stronger gradually to the point where you can take on hundreds of freakers at a time and just wipe them out. Thousands even. It's awesome.
Yeah, super cool. And then lastly, Nikki on Twitter says bounties, especially the bike chase ones. Also, infection zone clearing, but fuck crows. I hate those fuckers.
That's also a great point. There's all kinds of infected animals in the game that we haven't mentioned yet, but there's like infected wolves, infected bears. But yeah, infected crows are the worst. I think they're called criers in the game, and they just like swarm you, and they suck. All you can really do is burn their nests that are like up in trees and light electric lampposts, things like that. Yeah, I agree. They suck. Fuck those things.
Oh, yeah, I hate them. When they got introduced later in the game, I was like, they make me so mad because they're so stupid. Like, they don't even... Oh, man. They got me very angry at times.
But yeah, good stuff. Great answers.
Yeah, great answers. So, other kind of early game stuff, I guess, that happens that sets the story is Deacon also in this time sees a Nero helicopter fly overhead, which was remarkable. You know, no one's seen a helicopter in 2 years. What the fuck? Like, the world's over, isn't it?
Right.
And so Deacon follows it, and he ends up picking up a walkie-talkie that the Nero agents drop. And so when the Nero agents are out there, they get out of the helicopter, and they've got these like big ass hazmat suits, you know, big guns, official looking, and they're researching the freakers. So pretty weird to kind of see this going
like
on.
No one's heard of Nero in almost 2 years, and no one's seen a helicopter in that long, and suddenly they just appear again, and Deacon's like, what the hell is going on? So it's definitely that's a big twist that happens early on, where it's like, oh, okay, something new is boiling. There's trouble afoot. So
they're still here even, like and you almost sense that Deacon like is like, wait, am I seeing a helicopter? And when he kind of mentions it to other people,
right,
they're like, yeah, sure.
He's not sure if he's just going crazy or not, or if that actually happened. So
yeah, which it sets for a cool I don't know, plot that's going in there. And so with the walkie-talkie, Deacon's just kind of using that to track Nero. Okay, what's going on? Maybe I'll be able to meet up with them. And on the walkie, he hears O'Brien on the radio. And so he goes to follow O'Brien to his last location. He's like, what the fuck? The guy I left Sarah with? He's alive still? Because actually also in this time, we've learned that the camp that Sarah was at had been overrun. Everyone's dead there, so Deacon assumes that Sarah also died in that time. He has a rock that like memorializes her there, and is like, obviously she didn't escape. Everyone at this camp is dead, kind of thing. So to know that O'Brien is alive, he's like, wait a minute, what? Maybe she's not dead? She's probably dead.
Right, but he just kind of makes that connection. Like, if O'Brien's still alive, maybe he knows something about what happened to Sarah. Like, it's a lead that he can't ignore. So like, he has to track it down and get answers. But yeah, he has been spending nearly 2 years trying to come to terms with losing Sarah. Like, all indications point to she was killed at that camp along with everyone else. So like, he's been trying to move on ever since, and not really succeeding at it so far. So yeah, that's his next. That's his next mission, is to track down O'Brien and find out what happened to Sarah. But that leads us into some flashbacks. Actually, we get sent backwards to before the apocalypse and back to when Deacon and Sarah first met. Very romantic comedy movie type situation where Sarah is like, you know, on her way to her new job out in the farewell wilderness, and her truck breaks down. Deacon drives up on his chopper, and like, hey, need a ride? And it gets so cute and adorable from there. We see another flashback of Sarah gathered for her research, and she shows Deacon how to use it for medicine, specifically to treat burns, which back in the present is really useful for Deacon, who wants to help Boozer with his burnt arm. And we just get this whole picture of their life together before it all went wrong, where they get engaged, and we get all these clues that both of their respective families didn't really approve. Like Deacon's gang, the rest of the mongrels, they were not sold on Sarah. She doesn't really understand, quote unquote, the life. She's not a biker groupie necessarily. And of course, Sarah's family not happy at all. They see Deacon as a complete scumbag and loser, and so they kind of just only have themselves. But of course, Boozer is a ride or die. He's Deacon's brother, so he loves Sarah. He's like she's like his little sister. So we get this really nice little tapestry of what they had and what they were able to enjoy and cherish before the infection came along.
Yeah. I thought that was really cool, just seeing what their life was before this, and seeing that they want to each make sacrifices for each other, that they're committed to their relationship. Deacon goes nomad, which means basically that he's still in the mongrels, but he's more of a side player at that point, that he maybe isn't as involved with regular activities with the bike gang, in hopes of that maybe making things more palatable for Sarah's family. And then Sarah on the other side is like, if they don't like you, it doesn't matter. I like you, and that's all that matters. And so kind of cool seeing that. And I guess the last big flashback that matters is we get to see Deacon and Sarah get married. And Boozer's the only one who
what
came
a guy
for either
what an
side.
Awesome dude. I love him.
That made me big on Team Boozer, seeing that. I was like, you're a good dude. You're a good dude. You weren't just like a guy who was in the MC with Deacon, but like, you're really there. You really care about him. And I thought that was really cool. So those are some flashbacks to get some of their relationship. From here, we pick back up with Boozer in the present day, and Boozer is fucked up. His arm is infected. It's really fucking him up. And he's been sort of unreasonable at this point too. He's like, I don't need to do this for my arm.
I'll walk it off. I'll be fine. Leave me alone. He's also like hallucinating a bit. He almost shoots Deacon at one point, thinking he's like an intruder. He's not in his right mind. He's not doing well at all. So Deacon decides the only option left is to go down to the Lost Lake camp and sneak in and steal their medicine, which is the only option because he can't walk through the front door because something bad went down between him and Lost Lake leadership in the past, and he's not exactly welcome there anymore. So that's what he decides that he has to do. And he, makes the attempt. He sneaks in, but he gets caught. And he has to sort of come clean, like, hey, look, it's because Boozer's really, really in very bad shape, and he needs help. So luckily the hatchet is buried. Deacon and Boozer are welcomed back into the camp, and Boozer is given the treatment he needs. And we're basically introduced to sort of I would kind of consider this a second act of the game, where Lost Lake is kind of the new hub. It's kind of like Deacon's new home base, more or less, and where a lot of the next activities happen. And we get introduced to some of the major players at Lost Lake.
Yeah, so Lost Lake is led by a guy named Iron Mike. He's this older guy who is really tough and like a badass, but also has kind of a view that like the society can be rebuilt if we be good, if we have laws, if we try to recreate society, it will work. We don't have to be monsters because the world's monstrous. Like that's sort of his outlook. And so he's trying to lead this camp. He's got a good camp, and it's pretty different from the ones we've seen before. It does seem I don't know, more similar to I guess society pre-apocalypse, in that, like, there's farming, that people everyone has a job, but it's not like coerced.
Right. It's pretty organized. It's not as slapdash as Copeland's camp. It's not as abusive as Hot Springs camp. It's definitely influenced by Iron Mike's ideals of, we're going to bring order and peace and community back to the world. So you can see that in action, which is pretty cool.
Your other kind of key players at Lost Lake are Ricky, who we met earlier. She is like a mechanic. She seems to be sort of a deacon type role for this camp in a lot of ways. And then you've got Addie, who is Ricky's girlfriend and also the doctor at Lost Lake Camp. I think she used to be a vet or maybe some other medical thing pre-apocalypse, and so now she's the one there, and she's cool. And then lastly, we've got Schizo, who is kind of a douchebag, and and he at times feels like Malibu's Most Wanted.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's precisely the vibe I got from him.
Yeah, he feels a bit like that. He's their head of security, and he wears a basketball jersey and talks.
Yeah, he acts like a gangster, even though he doesn't want everyone else to know that his real name is Raymond, and he went to a prep school before the apocalypse. He's not what he claims to be at all. He's not a tough guy. And it's as soon as he's introduced, it's very on the nose. Don't trust this guy. It's very much an obvious treacherous character. But that does unfold pretty organically later on. But we'll get into that. But yeah, Ricky, Addie, Schizo are kind of the main characters of the camp, but we're introduced to sort of a central conflict, not only for Lost Lake Camp, but for the entire region, really. And Iron Mike points this out to Deacon, is the fact that there are massive, gigantic herds, kind of migratory groups of freakers moving to and fro on the mountain passes up the main roads, and they seem to be hibernating in the tunnels. So Mike sort of points out to Deacon, this problem is not just a cluster or two of freakers here and there setting up nests. It's bigger than that. And if we ever want to expand our territory, expand camps, keep more people safe, we're going to need to deal with these gigantic hordes of freakers at some point. So you're kind of introduced to hordes at that part of the game. There's this plan to blow up the tunnels to keep the freakers from migrating and to destroy their nests. But in order to put that into action, Deacon has to help out Lost Lake in a lot of ways, find explosives, find a detonator, and all this other stuff. But before he can even do that, we need to address Boozer's arm. And so Deacon steals some antibiotics from a Ripper camp based on info that Schizo gave him. Schizo proved useful for once there. And so Boozer is stabilized, but unfortunately his arm has to be amputated. It's just too far gone. It was burned too badly, too infected. So sadly, Boozer loses the arm, but luckily he survives the process thanks to the medication Deacon found. So Boozer's okay. He's missing an arm, but he pulls through, which is good news.
Yeah, definitely good news there. Also, actually, something interesting with Iron Mike is he has a truce. Lost Lake has a truce with the Rippers, which is crazy. They're totally batshit, and the Rippers are like, hey, don't come in our area. It's cool. If you come in our area, we'll kill you. And Iron Mike's like, cool, we can coexist. We'll just be separate, kind of thing. So Iron Mike, again, has a pretty different outlook than Hot Springs or Copeland's camp. They don't do shit like that. They would fight Rippers if they saw them. So Deacon sneaking into their camp to steal the antibiotics has not fractured things, but it's heated the relationship up a little
hasn't bit. The truce is very tenuous right now.
Yeah, 100%. So from there, Deacon goes with Ricky to a hydroelectric dam to restore some power to Lost Lake Camp. Again, this is kind of continuing Deacon's role as being someone who's helping build Lost Lake Camp up. Similar to Copeland with the bike, trying to get parts for that. Deacon is doing kind of the same thing here, except it's for the meds, for Boozer's arm, for the care, for letting them stay there. So while they're there, they get the dam going. That's good. However, Rippers show up, and they have to fight them. And this is the first time that anyone besides Deacon has had to fight Rippers in a while. Like, Ricky's never fought Rippers before this, or, the truce is held. But, now this is looking a little more questionable. Right. Why were they here? That sort of stuff. Alongside this, Deacon and Schizo are pursuing the ambition of blowing up some stuff to be able to make the freaker travel paths less likely. They go into a mine to get dynamite, and this is pretty intense. Yes, it's scary down there. Like, it's dark. You can hear freakers, but you can't see them.
Creepy stuff. And that's also a point where Deacon and Schizo actually bond a little bit. They sort of worked. They put together a tenuous working relationship where they're not at each other's throats. They're just trying to get something done, and they actually find some common ground. They sort of agree that, like, oh man, I would never leave someone to be eaten alive by the freakers. That's like the worst way to go, or things like that. Like Deacon's, I think in his actual journal, like in the mission log, he says something along the lines of, "It's good to know Schizo and I have that in common. Like we both at least have that line that we don't cross, and we have that in common with each other." So. You get a moment where Schizo isn't a complete piece of shit, and Deacon and he get along, but unfortunately that doesn't last.
Yeah. There was that glimmer of hope.
Yeah, maybe he's not so bad.
Maybe he's not the worst.
But while that's happening, unfortunately, Boozer, having lost his arm, is again not in great shape. He's getting kind of depressed. He wanders off, leaves the camp. He feels kind of purposeless. He feels a little useless without his arm, and Deacon decides, hey, I'm gonna bring him along with me for a supply run or some kind of errand he's on. But Boozer wanders off. He sort of just goes off on his own, and he comes across a group of Rippers who are in the process of killing a bunch of dogs, healthy, wild, uninfected dogs that you and I would be happy to make our pets, and their Reapers are just butchering them. Of course, as any sane person would do, Boozer completely goes off, and he runs out and just goes Rambo on the Rippers and kills them all. He starts fighting them at least, and Deacon, being the brother that he is, dives in and kills Rippers right alongside him. So they have a very cathartic moment of killing Rippers together. Like we talked about earlier, kind of even further breaking the truce that Lost Lake has with the Rippers, but they don't care. They don't care at this point. And in the process, Boozer rescues a puppy that he adopts, and he has a little furry friend now. So he fights through a bit of an existential crisis and some depressive episode that Deacon tries to help him deal with. So it's a nice little character building moment for the two of them, kind of a bonding moment, and it's good. But unfortunately, the good times don't last because later, Deacon and Schizo they hatch a plan to sneak into a Ripper camp to get the detonator for the dynamite that they found, and they find it. They get there. Everything's going swimmingly. Everything's going great. But then Schizo betrays Deacon, sells him out, and Deacon gets captured by the Rippers. Schizo basically explains, the Rippers made me a deal. If I gave them you and Boozer, they would leave Lost Lake alone. So this asshole Schizo kind of like justifies it, rationalizes it, like, I'm protecting Lost Lake by doing this. It's nothing personal. Sorry, see ya. Have fun getting tortured by the Rippers.
Yeah. Oh man, I was so pissed at Schizo at this point.
Son of a bitch.
Especially because on this run, I was like, okay, maybe he's okay.
Right.
Like, there were some moments where you're like, all right, maybe Schizo's not the worst.
Yeah, you're just starting to come around on like, hey, maybe there's hope for this guy, and then bam.
Yeah, then you're sold out, and you're like, that motherfucker. Yeah. Like, so yeah, Skizza's a bitch for sure.
For the record.
You get sold out, and so Deacon then at this point is captured by the Rippers, and they've got him chained up where he's got his arms like spread longwise out on some chains. And the leader of the Rippers is a guy named Carlos, and he's there to torture Deacon. And the reveal is that Carlos actually used to be in Deacon's gang. He's a former mongrel. But he was kicked out of the gang. He did something shitty. They kicked him out, and they tortured him when they kicked him out, making him like remove his tattoos.
Right. It's kind of common. Well, I'm not an expert, but I assume that part of being in an outlaw motorcycle gang is that if you you only leave the club by dying. Ideally, that's the only way out, really.
Right.
But if you get excommunicated or kicked out of a outlaw motorcycle gang like the Mongrels, you can't leave and keep your tattoos, like the ink that makes you a part of the club. When Carlos, back then he was known as Jesse Williamson, when he was kicked out of the Mongrels, Deacon, Boozer, and the rest of the gang, they all held him down and they torched off his tattoos because he was being kicked out of the club. And that reveal tells you, oh shit, Carlos has had it out for Boozer and Deacon this whole time because of the past that they have, the past that they share together, and that's part of the motivation for the attack on Boozer at the beginning of the game. At first you think, oh, this is just Rippers being Rippers. This is just what they do. They torture people with a blowtorch. It was more than that, though. It was a targeted attack on the other former mongrels, Deacon and Boozer, to torture them the way Jesse was tortured, the way Carlos experienced it. So that's a big twist. That's a big reveal. It kind of tells you, even in this world, your past can catch up to you, and it definitely catches up to Deacon there.
Yeah, pretty crazy. And Jesse is clearly, like, going from a guy who used to be a mongrel to an insane cult leader, still he still cares about this 2 years later.
Yeah, it's messy. So Deacon loses like one of the tattoos on his arms. He gets like a really bad burn. Luckily, not as bad as Boozer had, but he gets torched pretty badly. Luckily, Lisa shows up. Well, not so luckily because she's a Ripper now. It's crazy. I think at some point back in the game, it's mentioned that Lisa disappeared from Lost Lake. No one knows where she went, and this is when you find out she was recaptured by the Rippers and they turned her into one of them. She's bald now. All of her hair's gone. She has a lot of the scars that they put on their scalp and their face and whatnot, and she's a Ripper now. And she explains that part of the Ripper philosophy is that they worship the Freakers because of the infection that they have, because of the mutation, they don't remember what they were. They have become something else. They have completely transformed. And the Rippers respect that. The Rippers admire that. And that's why they transform themselves with the scarring and the psychotic torture. They want to disengage from the world. And the way they do that is by just ritualistically, butchering themselves, torturing each other, turning other people into Rippers the same way, almost like trying to emulate the Freakers. And Lisa sort of like understands all that now. And she's, kind of says things along the lines of, I wish I could just forget what I was. I wish I could just completely obliviate all that I remember and all that I've experienced, like the like the Freakers do. Which is, it's fucking scary as hell. Like, she's being like super creepy and espousing a lot of really interesting perspectives on the Rippers and why they are the way they are. But luckily, she is still enough of herself remains where she takes pity on Deacon and helps him escape. So he manages to get out of the clutches of Carlos and his cult and try to make his way back to Lost Lake.
Yeah. And on Deacon's way back to Lost Lake, the Rippers are attacking. It's pretty chaotic. Like, regular Lost Lake people are just getting gunned down. Buildings are being burned. It's pretty crazy. Deacon makes his way into kind of the Great Hall, so to speak. and Iron Mike is held up with Carlos. They've got Boozer, Schizo's there. Everyone's got guns pointed at each other, and Iron Mike is able to broker a truce, basically, and says, you can either accept this truce, we're going to be done, you don't get Deacon, you don't get Boozer, or we can all die right now. And Carlos is like, all right, fine, we don't all have to die right now. And so that doesn't happen. The Rippers just leave, and Schizo goes into lockup.
He is exposed as the traitor, and he's locked away. Thank God.
Yeah. I'm glad that that happened. But at this point too, Deacon is like, all right, fuck this. I'm not dealing with Rippers anymore. I'm ending this. Boozer, you ready to end shit? Also, did you recognize Carlos? Yeah, it's that bitch Jesse. And so they come up with a pretty elaborate plan to wreck the Rippers, which is they're going to go to the dam that's nearby. The dynamite we were going to use to, stop the hordes from coming in. Instead, we're going to use that to blow this dam up and just flood out the Rippers, which they do successfully. You get a pretty fun sniper mission on this because you steal Schizo's sniper rifle. So Boozer sets charges. You shoot Rippers from a sniping position. That's pretty fun.
Very cool.
Blow the dam, flood out the Rippers. Their camp is just underwater. Probably 80 or 90% of them just get killed in the flood.
Yeah, and they're completely thrown into absolute chaos and disorder. So Deacon and Boozer have the advantage, and they basically just launch a 2-man assault on the remnants of the Ripper compound and fight their way in. And Deacon has a really cool, really badass final showdown with Carlos. It's a mano-a-mano battle. It kind of comes down to a knife fight. Two former bikers just shedding blood. Deacon manages to get the upper hand and kills Carlos, kind of closing the circle of vengeance there, and kind of bringing the Rippers more or less cease to exist as an organization after that.
Yeah, they're done, and I really liked Deacon being like, fuck this, we're not dealing with them anymore. It just gets rid of all of them. I felt like that was such a good power move by Deacon, and was like, nah, this bad faction's gone.
Iron Mike is, classic Mike, always making those deals and, saving lives, which is definitely admirable. He, defused the situation at Lost Lake and saved a lot of lives there, but Deacon and Boozer know that it's only a matter of time before it goes rotten again, so they decide, let's just end the threat here and now. So they're the type of people who will just do what needs to be done. And, Mike obviously wouldn't approve, but you can't argue with the results. Rippers are gone.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, and I feel like that's where Mike's left in this is God damn it, you shouldn't have done it, but I guess I'm glad there's not Rippers.
But yeah, that basically closes a chapter more or less where Lost Lake is kind of safe for the time being. Boozer's healthy more or less. He's back on his feet. Lost Lake has power again thanks to Deacon and Ricky rigging the dam to work again. The Rippers are gone, and Deacon feels like, what, I've done everything I can here. I need to move on and keep pursuing that lead I have to find out about Sarah. So that's kind of his next phase. He's done what he can for Lost Lake, and he needs to keep working on the reason he has to keep going right now.
Yes. Alongside this time, as he's been doing runs and stuff for Lost Lake, he's been in contact with O'Brien and talking with O'Brien. The main broker of their deal is O'Brien says, hey, I'll find out info about Sarah, but I need you to spy on other Nero agents. So you get a couple times of going to other helicopters going somewhere, you hide nearby them and capture their reports so that O'Brien has them. As you do this, O'Brien finds out that Sarah was actually taken to a different camp than the one that Deacon had thought. It wasn't the one that overran. When the helicopter presumably wanted to go to that camp, they couldn't go because it was already overrun, so they went to a different one.
So Sarah's chopper, was basically rerouted to somewhere else that was kind of south of Lost Lake. But unfortunately, that leads Deacon to an area he can't really reach because he doesn't know a way over the mountains to go south to where that camp is. So he has to turn to Iron Mike for help, and Mike tells him about a mountain pass he can take, and off Deacon goes. He kind of leaves Lost Lake behind, and he crosses this mountain range. There's this really cool montage of him sort of struggling uphill with his motorcycle and braving the blizzard and just crossing this mountain. Because otherwise he would have just taken the tunnel, but the tunnel's like there's a blocked off tunnel that he can't use, so that was the only way. But yeah, he's on the trail of this kind of rumor or this secondhand information from O'Brien, like, hey, your wife didn't go to the camp that you thought. She was actually taken to this other one. So he's chasing this ghost of a chance that maybe he'll find some trace of her there. But after crossing the mountains, he doesn't find Sarah right away. He does find other people, though. People who claim to be soldiers of something called the Deschutes County Militia. It's kind of a paramilitary organization. It's part Survivor Enclave, part Army. And they are an organized outfit. They have ranks. They have a command structure. They're not just your average group of bandits or whatever. So Deacon comes across them, and he helps them kill a very large, very angry, infected bear called a berserker. And he sort of thinks, hey, maybe these guys might have some information. I'll see where this goes.
Yes. So this leads to him getting introduced to the Diamond Lake Outpost, which is the camp these soldiers were from. They vouch for him and be like, he killed the infected bear. You should you should help this guy out, even if it's just let him sleep here for the day, give him some food, and he can carry on if that's what he wants. And when we're there, we meet the leader of this camp, which is a guy named Captain Corey. And Captain Corey explains that this is actually a smaller outpost for the larger Deschutes County Militia. They've got a big thing going. And we see that the organization, firepower, manpower, all of that over here on this side of the mountain is way different. Like they've burned out a lot of the forest so that freakers can't make their nests there, so that you can see them when they come. Like it's far more organized and efficient than anything we've ever seen.
Right. Yeah, it's a veritable fortress. Deacon finds on the main base of the militia is on Wizard Island, and it's a really stunning sight when you first see it in the game. It's like this very heavily built up wooden fortress on this piece of land in the middle of this big crater, and it seems very well defended. There's like supply lines established. It's like you said, it's down to a science. They have it down. They have it to a T when it comes to surviving the freakers outside. They've really got their shit together. And Deacon comes in and he's like, "Oh, hey, this is cool. This is not what I expected to find." But he's introduced. Captain Corey sort of shows him the ropes. Important side note: when he meets Captain Corey, who's a leader in the militia, he notices that this captain is wearing the mongrel's ring that Deacon originally gave to Sarah. Bum bum bum, and it's just sort of like you can see the look on Deacon's face. And it's like, how the fuck did you get that? I'm about to kill you right now. And like he's like barely restraining himself from just beating the shit out of Corey right now. And like, where did you get that ring? He's like, I got it. Honestly, I was surprised he himself there. That's not really like him. He's generally a pretty impulsive guy. So I was like oddly proud of him that he kept himself in check there. He's like, I gotta keep cool. I gotta play this low key, figure out what's happening here. Luckily, he manages that, and he's actually kind of inducted into the militia. He's even given a rank. He's made a corporal, and they're like, "Hey, yeah, welcome, earn your keep." And you'll get along fine. He meets the leader of the militia, guy calling himself Colonel Garrett. Seems like at first glance a very typical military type. He's buttoned up, he's serious, he's dedicated to the job. But we later find out he's like kind of a religious nut. He's kind of a wacko who thinks like it's his divine mission to sweep the earth clean of the infected, and he's kind of lost his marbles. But more on that later.
Yeah. At your first meeting of him, he's like, military commander. You're like, oh man, some like a real military leader. It feels that way. But then as he's talking with Deacon, as you get to know him, he's like, the apocalypse was always coming, and so, this is Noah's Ark. We're gonna, be the thing that survives humanity. And you're starting to be like, all right, I don't know about this guy. Like, you're a little less sure. And so in his introductions to the camp, he says, I'm going to show you our main officers, our couple key officers below me. You're going to do runs for them. You're clearly good at things. So Deacon doesn't just have to be a foot soldier. He's getting a real job. So first up, he meets a guy by the name of Dr. Jimenez. He's the medical doctor there. Cool guy, pretty friendly. And he fixes Deacon's arm up a little bit and will, continue fixing it up as it goes. Next up, he meets a guy named James Weaver, who is in charge of blowing shit up. Basically, he's kind of your demolition man, and so he's like, trying to provide chemicals that can just blow up a lot of freakers at once. That's sort of his aim. And then lastly, there is the Wizard Island Witch to meet, and Deacon meets, and it's Sarah. She's alive. She lives.
Man, what a reveal! It's kind of teased early on. Like, as soon as Deacon arrives, it's like, oh, wait till you meet the Wizard Island Witch. Like this person who's only mentioned and alluded to is like, oh, she has a reputation as being really standoffish and hard to work with. And Deacon's like, oh, I can't wait. Sounds like a really lovely person to work with. But he meets, it's Sarah, his wife, who he's been looking for this whole time that he thought was dead. And it's such an awkward reunion between the two of them. They're suddenly just thrown into a room together, and they both know they have to act like they don't know each other. Because like there's, there are entanglements with this militia that they're both a part of, and they have to act like, oh, we're meeting for the first time. She thought he was dead. He thought she was dead. He was, and so it's a very uncomfortable moment for them both. But later, when they get a chance to talk privately, he's, obviously overjoyed to see her again, and, vice versa. She's likewise happy to see him. Just not believing that he's still alive. It's a crazy miracle for them both. But she tells him, I'm staying. I can't just leave with you. I know you came here to get me, but I can't leave because the work I'm doing here is important. Before the apocalypse, she was kind of a biological researcher. She was a biologist. She was a botanist. She did a lot of really hard science, really heavy scientific work, and she's hoping to continue that work here with the militia. She's hoping that something she can do might eventually help cure the infection, save the world. So she makes it clear she's not just going to leave right away with him. So Deacon has no choice but to stick around and help her out.
Yeah, which was interesting. Deacon obviously was not expecting that he thought, Sarah would just get on his motorcycle and
like old times.
And so he's like, okay. So they've got to stay here. So from here, Deacon is, I would say, put into a similar state as with the previous camps we've been in with Sarah and the military, but his kind of aim being is, okay, cool, I'm going to do this shit, and ultimately Sarah's going to get what she wants, and then we'll be able to leave. So I'll do this for the time being. One of the big things that happens here is they do a run, and Sarah comes with him, and they go to her old lab that she used to work at. And they get there, and they find that everything has actually kept running. There's a solar generator, and so there's this moment of, oh my gosh, like, this place could be a safe haven. It's got, electric fences. Sarah got in via her like key code, like kind of thing. So it's like, man, this could be a real safe haven. But as they explore, they find that several of Sarah's former coworkers are here, but they're crazy and hostile. So we have to eliminate.
Which is a sad moment because these are like Sarah's former coworkers, and she also realizes that back when everything was going down and the world was ending, her other coworkers, like fellow researchers, had tried to come to the compound, this lab, to hide out and be safe. But the security forces had already taken over, and they turned all the researchers away and left them to die. And those same security guards are the same people now trying to kill Deacon and Sarah 2 years after the apocalypse. So it's a painful moment. It's like, I thought I could trust these people. I thought they would be, allies, but no, they're basically no better than the common marauders that Deacon makes a living hunting down and killing. So yeah, you got a little firefight there, but eventually they make their way into the heart of the lab, and they make a discovery that shocks Sarah to her core. Needless to say, she finds out that the research she had done here at this lab was used to basically develop the Freaker virus. So in a way, her work allowed the apocalypse to be possible, made it happen. So she has to grapple with that, and it's a very heavy revelation for her. But they get what they came for, and they leave. But on the way back to Wizard Island, they get caught in a snowstorm. They take shelter in a cabin, and they rediscover their feelings for each other while they're hiding out and waiting out the storm. And it's honestly a very tasteful, very beautiful moment. They spend the night there, and kind of all the things that they wanted to say and do when they first saw each other, when they first had that awkward reunion but couldn't, they do there. So it's like they finally are able to have some time alone and really reconnect. So it's a nice story beat for them both, and it's a nice character moment.
Totally agree. I think that was good, and even with the context of that, like, they've done this run together, they've spent a lot of time together now. Like, it's not weird. Like, I knew you 2 years ago before the world ended, even though we were married and close then. This is good. This is nice for them for sure. Unfortunately, when they arrive back at the camp, Dr. Jimenez was killed. And we find out he was killed by Taylor, who was a guy who enlisted when Deacon did. They showed up at the same time. And he's kind of a burnout, drug addict kind of guy. He calls you a few times, and he's kind of
He was
funny.
a comic relief character, but you could definitely tell he wasn't really up for the challenge of being a survivor and a soldier in the militia. And it seemed like he had cracked under pressure. He was trying to get a fix for his very obvious drug addiction. Dr. Jimenez got in his way, and Taylor stabbed him, and Dr. Jimenez unfortunately died. And of course, in a world like this one, where medical ability and skill are very highly valued and very valuable, that's a huge loss for the militia, for sure. And so it falls on Deacon. It's like his job to find Taylor, track him down, bring him to justice. And he does so. He goes out and finds this guy. And Deacon realizes this pathetic kid really just was not equipped to live in this world. He just didn't have what it takes to get by, and his addiction was his downfall. And Deacon just sort of takes pity on him. And he knows, if I take Taylor back to militia base, he'll just be hanged. He's just going to be executed by the colonel. So he kind of takes the compassionate route and helps Taylor overdose instead. So he kind of like goes peacefully. Which it's a hard scene. It's a hard moment, but it kind of tells you about Deacon rediscovering some humanity. He hangs on to certain charitable impulses that he still has. Like, I can still do some good. I can still help this guy in some way in this impossible situation that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, and with Taylor, like Taylor at this point is crying, like I can't go back and get hung. Like when you get hung, you shit yourself. Everyone's laughing at you. Like I can't go through that. And Deacon, as you said, chose to give compassion to him, even though he knew Garrett would be pissed. Like he's like, Garrett wants that chance to get his justice, so to speak. It's not enough that Taylor's dead. He would want, that spectacle. But Deacon is like, no, you're fine, Taylor. Like, I get it. Like, and I'll give you the way out you want, which is cool. It's cool to kind of see Deacon have some side of that, because I'm sure there's been times where Deacon, before this game and the 2 years preceding, has just been really ruthless all the time, just killing anyone and everything for no reason, kind of thing. So. From here, we pick back up, though, with Sarah, and she asks you to capture a newt, which is basically a
juvenile,
cake freaker.
like a teenage, like a adolescent human who was turned into a freaker, and they're creepy. They're very creepy. Newts are weird.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. They definitely are. And Sarah asks you to bring one back specifically to her lab. She has an experiment she wants to do. The experiment is Sarah has something she wants to inject in it, and it will hopefully help. What happens is the experiment just kills the newt pretty quickly, and Deacon at first is like, hell yeah, that really worked. But Sarah's crying, and she says she thought she could reverse engineer the sickness and cure it, that she could cure the kid. And Deacon is like, wait, what? And so Sarah still sort of views the freakers as people, as who they were, and that perhaps in a lab we got them here, perhaps in a lab we could get them out of here. Maybe we could change them, maybe we could turn them back. And Deacon is kind of awestruck, because he's like, I've just been killing these things for 2 years. I've never thought of them as people, but I want to support you. I want to help you. And, they kind of come to a conclusion together that this military is probably not the place for that. So they need to run off together. They can pursue this, but the military is probably not the place for it.
While Sarah has her experiment trying to cure newts and, reverse engineer the sickness and cure the freaker virus in general, Weaver has a project of his own that he finally puts the finishing touches on. It's called the napalm Molotov cocktail, and it's like your typical bottle bomb, your typical bigger brother to the standard Molotov cocktail, and it's a beast. It's awesome, and it's so cool. And he asks Deacon to test it out, and so Deacon's like, "Oh, okay, sure." And there's a little test run they go on where Deacon and Captain Curry, they go out together, and they find a horde. And they're like, all right, let's try these things out, see if they work. And Deacon uses the napalm Molotov cocktails as well as whatever firearms that he has, and he wipes out an entire horde. While Corey's kind of like up on a hill watching, like, all right, keep it up. You're about halfway through all of them, and Deacon's like, only halfway. And it's like this really cool, actually. That was one of my favorite missions, where you have that sort of buddy cop dynamic between Deacon and Corey, and you're being introduced to the horde combat mechanics, like of have a plan, have a route, have somewhere to go, leave yourself an escape route, set traps, deploy your throwable explosives really, really wisely. It's a really cool mission, and being able to use the napalm for the first time is awesome. And Deacon's like, damn, this actually works. I did it. I killed like 500 freakers all like within 5 minutes. This could actually work. And so there's a bit of a beacon of hope there, like maybe we can take this world back from the freakers. But as this game tends to do, when you hit a high point, you're thrown into a low point soon after. So when Deacon and Curry sort of go back to base with the good news, they find out that Sarah and Weaver had been moved into the mountain at the center of camp, which the Colonel is calling the Ark. It's kind of like where he can't stop with the biblical references. He can't help himself. But it's where he's keeping all this like scientific information, all of this valuable stuff, and he considers Sarah and Weaver very valuable. So he has them both under heavy guard. And even worse, Colonel Garrett decides the rest of the world is the enemy. The sin of humanity caused the Freaker mutation, and so it all has to be wiped clean. He's going full on 100% fire and brimstone at this point, and it's very disturbing.
Yeah, it is. He's even to the point of like, Freakers aren't our real enemy. They do what they do. The real enemy is the scum out there, the people, the drug users, the blah, blah, blah. We have to eliminate them. We're God's sword, almost. And it's like, fuck this guy. Like, he's lost the plot.
He's out of it.
So, he's totally out of it. So, at this point, of course, Deacon's alarm bells are really going off. All right, we got to get the fuck out of here. We wanted to leave anyway, but, man, the world is about to get a lot worse. And so, he gets in contact with O'Brien again. And O'Brien has him go check this cave out, and Deacon agrees, but he says, you've got to help me escape from this place. And something unique about this area is the south is cut off to Nero because the militia has RPGs. They'll shoot helicopters down. So they've got kind of a unique dynamic here. Deacon goes, checks the cave out, does the zombie stuff that O'Brien wants it done, and O'Brien says, cool, let me know time and place, we'll come pick you up. So Deacon plans their escape, and it's looking like it could really happen. He gets Sarah busted out. They sneak past a variety of guards. They make their way to the top of the point. Deacon also disables the RPGs. The Nero helicopter can come. We'll swoop them up.
And it's all going so well up until... Guess who shows up? Fucking Schizo, of course. That son of a bitch shows up, and it turns out that he's like a new recruit to the militia, and Colonel Garrett is showing him around, and that just so happens to be the moment Garrett and Schizo come up to the top of the mountain, and they're like, oh, hey, and then here's where here's where we keep the RPGs, and Schizo just goes like, hey, I know him, and he kind of like, Schizo does what he does. He's a weaselly little rat bastard who turns the militia against Deacon immediately. Of course, Deacon's also being caught escaping and breaking Sarah out, so that's not good for him either. Basically, Sarah and Deacon are both recaptured. Sarah gets thrown back into the Ark, and Deacon is going to be executed the next day. So things are not looking good at all. Luckily, Deacon has a friend in his corner, a new friend in the form of Captain Corey, who has realized, hey, wait a minute, Deacon and Sarah, they're together. They were married before all this. That explains a lot. And he and some of his men, like some of the soldiers under his command, who have also had enough of Colonel Garrett's nonsense, they all sort of go AWOL and they rescue Deacon. They let him free. And so Corey and his guys are like, we're out of here. We're deserting. We're going to bust you out while we're deserting, so good luck. And so, yeah, Deacon is saved. He's let loose, and he decides to head home to Lost Lake to see what's going on there because he knows that the militia is about to attack Lost Lake. And, of course, he gets there as the battle is raging, but Lost Lake manages to drive off the militia. Unfortunately, in the process, Iron Mike had been shot by Schizo during the attack. That fucker Schizo, of course. Every bad thing that happens is pretty much Schizo's fault. And sadly, Iron Mike passes away right after Deacon makes it back. So it's a massive loss for Lost Lake. The camp still exists. Like, they have survived the attack, but their heart and soul, their leader, is gone. So that's a major low point.
Yeah, huge low point. So Deacon makes a plan, and he says, we have to hit the militia before they hit us. They have too many people. They have too many guns. We have to do this. So what he comes up with is a fertilizer truck bomb that he's going to send that into the militia's camp fortress. It'll blow open the gates. It'll cause a lot of problems. And with that, we'll be able to just basically like take them blind and just kill them all because they're going to be so distracted on one end of the fort. We can come in the other end, and this will take out a lot of the soldiers too. So Deacon, though, has to gather supplies for this. He also has to clear a couple hordes on the way because the supplies he needs are there. So Deacon's killing his way through this. Ultimately, this heads towards the final showdown. So Boozer and Deacon back at it again.
The dynamic duo.
They're heading to the gates.
the gruesome
fertilizer
twosome, the dynamic duo back in action. And they have this gigantic truck bomb ready to go. And they're kind of just barreling downhill straight toward the main gate of the militia base. And I think at this point, Deacon has the idea of like, well, someone has to drive the truck through the gate. It's going to be me. I'm going to push Boozer out, because even thinking back to the beginning of the game, Deacon was always ready to sacrifice for Boozer's sake. He was always ready to lay his life down for his brother, and it's mutual. The feeling's mutual. So Boozer beats him to the punch. He pushes Deacon out first. Deacon falls into the kind of like the crater, the water surrounding the camp, and the gate busts open. The truck blows up. For all appearances, it seems as though Boozer has given his life to destroy a significant portion of the militia base. And the Lost Lake inhabitants are there. They're fighting. They're invading Wizard Island. Copeland's camp is there. Hot Springs are there. Ada Tucker's people. They're all pitching in. All the camps of the north are kind of joining forces to deal with the threat that the militia poses. So, there's this giant battle going on. Deacon just kills and sneaks and dodges his way through the militia camp. And similar to the showdown he had with Carlos, he has another boss fight with Schizo, and it's very satisfying to finally kill that guy. It's so
yes.
nice. Yeah.
Oh, it's so satisfying to take Schizo out, and you're like, finally, this asshole is done. He's not showing up again. He's gone. Good riddance. Kill off Schizo. It's good. You arrive at the bunker in like the depth of the arc, and Colonel Garrett's got everyone held up, and he's pontificating about the new society they would have set up, whatever. And it looks like he is going to kill Deacon. He's got the revolver aimed at him, but he's been drinking tea, and he was apparently poisoned by Sarah with the flower that they'd picked up earlier that's highly poisonous. And Garrett falls down dead. They emerge together out of this, and they find in the wreckage that the militia has surrendered. The people that were left have surrendered. The camp is there. It's victorious. Deacon's walking around, though, of course, understandably sad that he lost Boozer to get this. They won the war, but he lost Boozer. And then Boozer rolls up and says, "Hey, what's up?"
Cool as a cucumber, not a care in the world. He's like, that was nothing. What else you got?
Yeah, he's like, the blast was big under the water. Like, you're just like, holy shit, you're here. They reunite. It's really great.
And things are looking great.
Victory.
There's finally hope for the future. The militia surrendered. Everyone's kind of relieved, probably, that everyone who wasn't a diehard supporter of the colonel, they're mostly relieved that he's out of power, and the militia can kind of go back to just keeping each other safe, like their original mission was. And all the camps are, feeling like, hey, things are going to hopefully get better from here. And Deacon and Sarah can finally truly be together. They kind of settle in at Lost Lake, and that's mostly where the mainline story wraps up. There are a few epilogues after that, but we're left with this scene where Deacon has sort of learned what's really important in life. He's found a community and a family that gives him more in life than just survival, and that's really what he's been looking for this whole time. I mean, he's been looking for Sarah, but more than Sarah, he's been looking for a reason to keep going, and he's finally found it, as well as her. So it's very poetic and very satisfying, and a great conclusion.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And so now that we've gone through the majority, or I guess basically all the game, excluding a little epilogue we'll talk about in a minute, but we've met everyone, and I thought it would be worth talking about who our favorite characters were that we met along the way. Besides Deacon, of course, I think that he's probably everyone's favorite who's played this game.
Oh, of course.
Deacon's great, so felt like giving some other people some options. So who are some people along the way that you really enjoyed?
Oh, man. I kind of pointed out Curry earlier. I really liked his interactions, especially during that first Horde mission and using the napalm. He's just a solid dude. Like, he really came through as a helpful character, like rescuing Deacon that partway through, and just being a really reasonable, wise, and helpful guy. So, yeah, there's not a ton of depth or dynamic to him, but I liked him. I liked the impression he left on me.
I liked too when you met him. You talk about your wife, but you give a fake name since you noticed the mongrel name,
right?
Mongrel ring he had, and he talks about his wife that he was just a military guy on vacation, so he happened to be here, kind of thing,
right?
And like I thought that was a cool little backstory, and like I like Curry for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Probably another favorite. It's got to just be Boozer. He's just such a bro. He's just such an awesome dude. Like, he's the cool older brother we all wish we had, who's constantly looking out for you and always there for you. Just awesome guy. And I definitely want to point out Ricky too. She felt like a very just dynamic and believable character. Like, she just felt so organic, and she complimented Deacon really well. Like, they do feel like kind of peas in a pod. You find out that the history they share, part of it was like they actually traveled together early on in the post-apocalypse, like within the first few months after the freaker infection ended civilization. They survived together. Like, her, Deacon, and Boozer, they were kind of in a group together, and she actually makes a pass at Deacon here and there too. Like, kind of, it's made clear she's bisexual, and she's like, she's with Addie. Addie's her girlfriend, but there's also moments where it's like, Deacon, how come you and I never hooked up? And Deacon never really let her in on the situation with Sarah, so he's really guarded about that. And it just felt like it felt like a truly grounded friendship type dynamic that they had that was believable, and it felt right. And I just liked her place in the story a lot. And I guess lastly, Iron Mike was just a very pivotal figure. I liked his background as kind of an early community leader after the world ended. He knows how bad things can get when people stop trusting each other. He tells that story to Deacon about that thing he saw firsthand where those survivors in that one town all turned on each other and wiped each other out. And he kind of makes it clear to Deacon, that's the sort of thing I want to avoid. We need to work and get to the point where that doesn't happen. And he really exemplifies so many great ideals that in that situation, in that kind of world, you would want to try and keep carrying no matter what. So I liked what I liked what Iron Mike represented a lot.
Yeah, I did too. It was good to see that there's someone who's trying to like keep humanity or whatever in the midst of this. I thought he was a really cool character. Yeah, totally agree with what you've said. And yeah, for me, I had Captain Curry and Ricky, so I was on the same page as you. Good characters there for sure. Chris on Twitter wrote in and said Sarah St. John, so really liked her. I thought she was cool too.
Yeah. Nikki on Twitter says, Ricky, brilliant bi mechanic. I love her. 100%. Yeah. Bi visibility is great. That representation is great. And yeah, I agree. Ricky's awesome.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Gary on Twitter said Boozer was pretty memorable. Definitely.
Zombie Guts on Twitter. Probably Boozer if we are going in terms of actually liking them. That said, I thought the Colonel was brilliantly written and voice acted. It made him the kind of character you love to hate. Totally agree with that, too. That would be an honorable mention of mine, too. The Colonel was very interesting, very engaging. He wasn't, I mean, I guess you could say in some ways he was a typical bad guy where it's like, oh, he thinks he's just doing the right thing, but the way he was performed and the way he was written was very very immersive and engaging. So yeah, he was a really well done character too.
Totally agree. So that's the game itself. Now we've got a little epilogue, and then we'll move into some general thoughts we had about the game that we just didn't get to hit up as we recapped. So, secret ending, there's a couple things, but the big one is we talk to O'Brien again.
Uh-huh.
And when we talk to him, he tells us that Nero caused this, that Nero is the reason the Freakers are here, that the virus is evolving, that Nero is planning to weaponize it, and he tells us they're coming. And then the helicopter starts moving up, and then O'Brien also takes off his helmet, and his face is fucked up.
He looks like he's in the midst of turning into a freaker, but he's still able to talk, and which is not normal at all.
And then he jumps maybe 10 feet into the helicopter, he just fucking high jumps.
Yeah,
it.
that was crazy.
And then you're just like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, Deacon looks like he's just seen a ghost, and he's trying to make sense of what he just saw. And yeah, it's made clear that the virus is it's evolving, and it's kind of taking a new shape. And Nero has very insidious intentions. So that's probably a tease of what hopefully the sequel might deliver on if we get a sequel. So very interesting scene there.
Yeah.
There's also a cool cameo scene later on that you can also see where Lisa shows up at Lost Lake Camp. She has her own motorcycle now, and she just kind of rolls up to the main gate, and she gets some trouble from the guard there. The guard's like, "Don't come any closer or I shoot," because he thinks she's a Ripper. So it's this awkward standoff that Deacon shows up and he diffuses it. Hey, no, she's fine. She's not a Ripper. Leave her alone. And they have a little moment where they kind of catch up, and he's like, hey, glad to see you're doing okay out there. And she's now completely independent. She's a young adult. She's basically a drifter and a bounty hunter, kind of like Deacon. She's just making her living, making her way out there, hunting freakers and surviving off the land like he does. So I really liked that. I liked that little that little glimpse at a kind of a mentor-apprentice relationship that they might have, they could have. So that's also really cool potential for the possible sequel.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. It almost made me think, are we going to get a Lisa DLC?
Yeah, I'd be down with that.
It set it up as that she could be Deacon now if you wanted, kind of thing, which was kind of cool. Cool. So I guess from here we'll move into our general thoughts. Anything else we wanted to talk about this game? I guess the first thing I have just offhand that I felt was, of course, being zombies, it did feel very reminiscent of The Walking Dead, but also with the mongrels, the MC, all of that, it felt a lot like Sons of Anarchy also, which has been a quarantine show I've been very into.
Nice.
I never watched it before this, but with all the extra time, I've been watching Sons of Anarchy quite a bit, and there were so many things that were like, oh, that's in Sons. Nomad. Oh, burning the tattoos off.
Yeah.
All of those things. It was like I think one of the early episodes of Sons of Anarchy, a guy gets kicked out of the gang, like Jesse, and they ask him, do you want fire or blade to get your tattoos off, kind of thing. And it was like, oh, hell yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool. Those are both things I like, properties I enjoy, and this felt like a fun way that they converged in some ways.
Yeah, for sure. I just generally I thought that I love the I love the Sons of Anarchy tie-ins because I watched Sons of Anarchy years ago. I love that show. So I was like, oh, I know what a road captain is. I know what Nomad is. Yeah, I was like, that's awesome. That's so cool. I just thought in general, Bend Studio really just nailed the atmosphere and the environment. You could tell that they did a ton of research on the Pacific Northwest, the high desert biome, what the Cascade Mountains are like, what the plateaus and the lava flows are like. I just really felt like I was totally immersed in this wilderness and dealing with the enemies, moving through the environment, scavenging what I needed. I just felt like I was really in a living world. So the atmosphere was on point for me.
Yeah, totally agree. They nailed that for sure. It really felt like the Pacific Northwest for sure. It's on point. Another thing I think is probably just shown in us talking about this for quite a while, but I like Deacon quite a lot as a playable character. He's really enjoyable to use. He's got, the rugged outlaw, I don't care about anything vibe going, but then you also see him care about things and be sacrificial and those sorts of things. So it was cool kind of seeing the character that he was. And then along with that, I thought Sam Witwer did a fantastic job as the voice actor. He was really, really great. And, huge fan of that for sure.
Yeah, I agree totally. Sam Witwer is one of my favorite actors ever. I love pretty much everything he does. And yeah, he did a spectacular job. I feel like Deacon was one of his most dynamic and kind of just relatable characters. I just really felt for the guy. Like Deacon just felt like a person carrying a lot of pain with him, and that's a person wouldn't survive in a world like Days Gone's game world without carrying a lot of trauma with them and really building up a lot of emotional calluses and scars along the way. So I think Sam Witwer portrayed that really, really well. I also shout out to Scott White, who played Carlos. I thought he just really delivered like someone who was unhinged and completely losing their grip on humanity, but still holding on to a shred of a vendetta from a previous life. I just really felt like he sold that really well as Carlos. So honestly, every character I felt like was voiced and portrayed really well. There's no single instance I can really single out and complain about. I think everyone was casted really well, and just all the performances were really special. So
I agree. I thought that was great. One complaint I do have about the game is I do feel like it did try to do a little bit too much in terms of mechanics to me. So like it had Deadeye, kind of similar to Red Dead Redemption, where it's like everything slows down and you can kind of pick your shots real fast kind of thing while it's in slow-mo. And then you've got your motorcycle play. You've also got kind of maintenance in general of like, I need bullets, I need gas, I need to scrap for my bike. All of that stuff. And then also like the stealth section, specifically with Nero, where it was like required stealth to be close enough to them to spy on them. And to me, I kind of feel like they probably should have chose some of these mechanics and just emphasized them a lot and maybe gotten rid of some of the other ones, because it felt like it was a little bit too much where you did all of them, but, more at like a 7 or an 8 instead of maybe doing a couple at a time.
I get that. I think that's a good point. I'm glad you pointed out that stealth sections, like I also didn't feel like they fit that well. They kind of felt forced to me, but that being said, I understood the story reasons for them, like, oh, you need to find things out about Nero, but it felt a little contrived, like, oh, you can't stealth kill the Nero soldiers because their jumpsuits, their hazmat suits are knife-proof and bulletproof, and you can literally do nothing to them. But it's like, oh, but freakers can rip them apart, no problem, right? It was kind of weird. I was like, that's definitely a contrived thing, but I get it. I understand the reasons for it, but yeah, stealth felt a little out of place.
Yeah, it was like, story-wise justified, it made sense for it, but like gameplay-wise it didn't make as much sense.
And like another thing I would just tack onto that, it's kind of hard to explain, but the tone throughout the story felt a tiny bit confused for me. Like, I'm not sure if the game took itself too seriously or not seriously enough. It just kind of, the whole time through, it felt like I was in that weird limbo between this world is dead serious. I mean, it is for the most part, but it's also like a little cartoony in some aspects where it's like, am I am I super sold on this? I don't know. It was like, also some of the writing, the dialogue sometimes got kind of soap opera-ish. So there's just these tiny little quirks that I can barely, explain or quantify, but it's a deeply enjoyable story. Don't get me wrong. I love it from top to bottom, but there was just this strange quality to it that I can't put my finger on that kept me from being all the way invested. I was still like a tiny bit at arm's length throughout, like, if that makes any sense.
No, yeah, it does. It does seem like there are the tone being confusing. I totally feel that.
Gotcha.
For
yeah.
sure. One more kind of complaint I have is I didn't like the inconsistent use of kind of your skip option. So if you failed a task enough, it would actually let you skip it sometimes. And in a game like Red Dead Redemption, any mission you do, if you just fail it enough, I think if you fail it 3 times, the 4th time it'll say, hey, do you want to skip ahead from this gameplay section and, move forward kind of thing. You won't get, trophies or whatever, but it'll let the game keep going. And Days Gone had that, but it didn't have it all the time, so it was kind of weird. Like on like motorcycle chases, you could do that occasionally. On some of the hordes you could, but not on some of them. And so it was kind of weird in that there were a couple times in the game where it made you do something when it seemed like it maybe should have had a skip option. The first time I encountered this where I wanted it was when you steal those medical supplies from the breaker in the airplane early in the game when Schizo takes you to the antibiotics. You can't skip that breaker. You just have to kill, you have to fight it incessantly until you figure it out. But then, like with a motorcycle chase, some of those you can just skip. So I thought it was a little weird. If you're going to have a skip option, it seems like it should either apply more or maybe you shouldn't have one. So I thought that was
weird. I get that. I actually didn't notice that while playing, but that's a good point now that you pointed out. I was like, I get that. I guess the last thing I would say, it's actually, it's a compliment. I'm kind of through all my gripes. I've said all the gripes I have to say, but I just really enjoyed the progression mechanics, like the skill level ups, the weapon variety of things you unlock and get to play around with. Upgrading your bike throughout the game, it really felt like you were making a worthwhile investment the entire game. Like you're visually and physically improving your bike. You can feel the difference when you're driving it around. I really liked that. The skill trees were cool. Like you unlock some cool stuff along the way. Nothing like really revolutionary or groundbreaking, but everything worked really well, I think. Just in general, working your way up the ladder to the point where you could become that horde killer, like that legendary freaker massacre guy, doing that, like that whole process felt like a real challenge, and like you could see the results. You could really tell that Deacon was becoming more capable over time as you played with him. So I love that gradual payoff of you can tell that you're becoming more powerful and dangerous and more able to survive. So I think they pulled that off really well.
I agree 100%. That might be one of the best parts of the game, is how the progression went of like your bike and having those things, or your weapons getting better, or the skill tree. We didn't really hit much up on it, but I felt like as I was adding skill tree things, it wasn't that I was just leveling up, but they were things that were helpful. Like when I got the you could stealth kill a breaker, that was huge. Yeah. Like that totally made certain sections of the game way easier because I chose to upgrade in that way or whatever. And so I totally agree. I thought that was fantastic. And my last thing that I've got is same. I don't have I had a couple gripes, but obviously, as evidenced by us talking about this for a while, I like this game quite a bit. It was good. I'm looking forward to Days Gone 2. I assume that will happen. I would be shocked if it didn't. So I'm looking forward to that. The one hesitation I do have is I'm a little worried about if O'Brien is becoming a freaker. It seems that way. are they going to make it believable, and will it work, or will it feel gimmicky? Because it does feel like they're playing with fire a little bit.
That could be, that's risky. That could go either way. That could be really cool or really lame, and I'm not sure what would make it either way. But yeah, I do feel like it's kind of a fine balance they have to strike there. Like, how are you going to make weaponized, evolved freakers interesting? So it'll be interesting. I'm excited to see what they do with it.
Yeah. Me too. Definitely looking forward to playing it for sure. So
yeah, we have some I think some more Twitter responses as far as general thoughts on the I almost said last, but as far as general thoughts on Days Gone, Katie on Twitter says, really enjoyed it more than I thought I would. Very buggy, but not to where it killed it for me. Side note, I forgot there were some bugs here and there. That's a good point that we didn't mention. But she continues, horde mechanics are pretty cool, especially near the beginning of the game, but then you get kind of mentally used to it, so it doesn't have the same effect later on. Gave me great unscripted moments I will not forget, like when a wolf ran at me over a hill, I aimed at it. Then behind it over the hill comes a massive horde that's chasing the wolf and now me. Was a great oh shit moment that was unique to my game. That's an awesome thing to share. Thank you, Katie. It's a great point. I do remember my first horde situation that I wasn't ready for. I think we maybe all have that story, but like, I was just clearing out, I think, an ambush camp or a marauder base or whatever. I was just killing off some human enemies, and I heard freakers nearby. I was like, oh, that's more than I normally come across. What's going on over there? And I take a look like over this little ledge, and down on this little prairie right below me is like 150 freakers, and they suddenly like find me and they start running like, oh fuck, oh shit, and all I have is this scavenged AK-47 on me with like not much ammo, and I just like throw all the Molotovs that I have, and I just keep running, and I throw every bullet that I have at them, and I actually end up killing off my first horde that I was completely unprepared for early on in the game.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was amazing. It was like one of the baby hordes.
I love that.
It was like the tiniest one in the game, but I was still like really proud of myself.
Yeah, especially unsuspecting. You weren't ready for it, and you still handled it. That's awesome. It is really fun with those, is that the environment interacts with it so much. Like, there was this one section on my map for some reason where there was always a bear fighting freakers whenever I drove by. And I always thought that was really funny. I was like, I don't know how this happened, but this is the section where the bear and the freakers fight.
Yeah, real cool.
That's great. Yeah. Justin on Twitter wrote in and said, I really enjoyed it after giving it a second chance. I thought the characters were great. The freakers were a lot of fun. The world is excellent. Definitely looking forward to Days Gone 2, or really anything that the studio makes.
I agree. Sabrina on Twitter says, the bike as an imperiled method of traversal, storage unit, and save point was ingenious, and the bike was super fun to ride. The story was good, but it was the character relationships that really made the game. Deacon and Sarah are a shockingly good pair, and it's earned. I should say, though, the game's most interesting mechanic, hordes, take way too long to weave into the story, almost at the very end of the game, or at the end of a very long game. That's fair. It's a fair point.
Yeah, that is true. You become a horde killer, like, I don't know, maybe like 30 hours into a 35-hour game or something like that. Like, it definitely takes a while to get to that spot. Yeah, for sure. Melissa on Twitter said, to be honest, I adored it. Deke is a great character to traverse the apocalypse with.
Kieran,
oh yeah,
I'm sorry if I butchered that. Kieran on Twitter says, personally, really liked it, and it's one of my favorite games. It really feels like you lived in it. Highly recommend if you like games like The Last of Us.
Yep. Chris on Twitter said, not bad, but The Last of Us games are better, which I would agree with that. I like The Last of Us more, but this is plenty good for zombie content.
I don't disagree with that sentiment. For me, Last of Us and Days Gone are actually kind of equal in my mind. I like them both for different reasons. They're not like they're not a one-to-one comparison for me, but I get that. But
well, and I guess true. Also, they don't really try to be the same game. They definitely go for different things.
That's fair. Siri on Twitter says, I found it very good. It's one of the games that I don't want to end. It has been a beautiful experience touring a whole world in which it is devastated by monsters, and a beautiful story comes out of all of that.
Jonathan on Twitter said severely underrated.
Dave on Twitter, would have been great 5 years ago. Interesting. I think it's great now, but I think I know what you're getting at. Like, maybe the zombie game trend was a little bit in fashion back then, is maybe what you're saying, but that's fair. That's fair to say.
Sure. Dragon on Twitter said bad game. So
sorry to hear that, Dragon. That's too bad.
Yeah.
Nikki on Twitter. First of all, it was a pretty good game, a lot better than I expected. I enjoyed the story, even though it went down the trope hole at times. Bioweapon experiment gone wrong, etc. The graphics and weather effects were stunning. Snow on Deke's clothes, harder handling of the bike in the rain. Deacon is a really cool lead character, and I love traveling the open world via bike. He gives me Daryl vibes, and that's great. Haha, nice. Walking Dead shout out, I agree. The freaks were interesting, and discovering different kinds was fun. The Nero missions were cool, but I hated the forced stealth. What I didn't like was forced stealth, graphic drops, frame rate drops, inconsistency of which parts I could skip. Dan, you pointed that out, and which not, like the hordes. But all those bad things I listed didn't take me out of the game too much. While it was frustrating at times, even on easy mode, I'll still remember having lots of fun with the game, and that is what truly counts. Great answer, Nikki. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, totally. Great stuff. That was something I thought before I played the game, and now playing it is, if they would have wanted to, they probably could have just made this a Daryl Walking Dead game.
Yeah.
Like, if they would, like, I like what we got. I think this game is great, but it's like if The Walking Dead was like, hey, make a game like this, like they could have done this and changed some stuff, and people probably
they wouldn't have to
shit
change
for
a lot
but,
for it to be like the Daryl Dixon game. I actually thought, like, when I first started playing, I was like, hey, look at this. I have a motorcycle, I have a crossbow, I'm killing zombies. This is a Daryl Dixon simulator. I love it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it really hit that. But then it, also with that,
sure,
though, it did create its own thing, and Deacon's great, all that stuff. But it was funny just seeing that, and you're like, oh, it could be so close.
Definitely.
Also, I don't know if this was your experience, but me playing it recently, I didn't have a lot of glitches or stuff when I played, but I did watch some of a Let's Play while I was making some notes for it, and it was someone who had like a copy from PlayStation at release, and their copy was buggy as hell. Like there were times where like characters were like stuck inside each other and shit like that. Like it was crazy seeing it be really buggy at release, but for me, I didn't really notice too much when I was playing. So I don't know what your experience was, but it seems like they
I played it at launch, and I had a few bugs, nothing like really super bad, nothing like entirely game breaking, at least not very often. But yeah, you probably benefited from more of the patches that I didn't get right away. So there were definitely bugs, but you probably had the patches working for you. So that's what I get for playing at launch, though.
No, yeah, and I mean that's the risk of any game at launch. But that was something that I noticed just seeing a couple people mention it about bugs. I was like, it was pretty fine for me. But well, that stays gone. Fun game. If you've listened to this but still not played it, I would still recommend playing it. There's plenty that we didn't talk about because really you can do
There's
so
still
much
a lot
in this
to
game.
chew on.
And lots of fun things to do in that. So with that, we are gonna switch some gears and talk about Lore Party a bit.
Nice.
Though.
Thank you so much.
So, so first, I guess if no one's checked out Lore Party, could you tell us what the podcast is about? And
sure, yeah.
That sort
Lore
of
Party
stuff.
is actually, it's a network of shows all about video game storytelling. To boil it down, we have the main shows, which are they drop roughly every week or so, every other week or so. We have episodes about various games. Each season, we kind of tackle different game series and take apart the stories, characters, and universes from each of those games. This season, we're actually covering. I'm actually hosting episodes on Doom, the Doom games, which has been really fun. But yeah, we go all over the place. We're talking about the Spider-Man game. We're talking about Assassin's Creed here and there. We also have covered Halo in the past, Star Wars games, Pokemon. We really go all over the map. But there's also our mini game series, which is sort of a condensed, bite-sized version of the mainstream Lore Party experience. So those episodes are between 5 and 10 minutes. But the common thread is it's all about the stories, universes, and characters of those games. We don't really get into the gameplay mechanics that much. We don't like review the games. We really just dive into the lore and kind of tease out theories and takeaways from each game. And we go deep. It's really fun. We also have spin-off shows about The Witcher called Winds Howling that actually launched last year, kind of alongside the Netflix series. But yeah, so there's like that's kind of the Netflix series companion podcast, but it also gets into a lot of the stories from the books and the games themselves too. So, and lastly, our latest launch is Gom Jabbar, which is our podcast on the Dune stories. If you're familiar with Frank novels, that's a very rich sci-fi universe that co-hosts Abu and Leo really dissect and take apart and go into detail about. So there's an upcoming Dune movie coming down the pike that we're excited about, but there's also a lot of stuff from the books and the old movies and old miniseries that we talk about as well on Gom Jabbar. So definitely check that out if you're into Dune at all. I don't really know anything about Dune, but I love what they're doing with it there. So yeah, we have a lot of irons in the fire, but Lore Party has a lot going on. So no matter what you play, I'm sure we have something for you. So check us out.
Oh yeah, tons of stuff being covered there for sure, and a lot of cool stuff. And so also something that I think is really unique about Lore Party that I really like and think is cool is that there are a lot of you. I don't know. My guesstimation is like 10 to 12 people who co-host episodes, produce things, stuff like that. And so it's kind of cool is that like, you're doing a Doom thing, but then I know like Lawrence is talking about Spider-Man, and different things like that going on. And so it's not each one of the hosts are necessarily on each episode, but you each have things you're doing and have stuff going on, which I think is pretty unique. I think that's really cool, and I like it a lot. So I guess with that, how did you end up getting involved with Lore Party?
It's actually a really interesting story. My co-host Bruce, he and I do the Doom episodes together right now. We actually sort of knew each other years ago. My girlfriend / common law wife, basically, she knew Bruce back in college. They were friends together, so they had some mutual friends, and I sort of met him through her, and we started hanging out. And Bruce was telling me about, oh hey, I just joined this podcasting network, and I'm doing episodes for them now. They're called Lore Party, and I was like, oh, that sounds fun, sounds cool. And I didn't really think much about it for another while. I was like, a year later, he kind of comes to me again. He says, hey man, would you want to work with us, and would you want to join, check it out, maybe do some episodes with us? And I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. And so I joined Lore Party officially back in early 2019 or so, and ever since, it's been a wild ride. It's been awesome getting to know these guys and getting involved with what they have going on, and just this is my third season with them, producing and hosting. So it's been a great time. They're really good people. They've become really good friends of mine. And as you pointed out, we have such a variety of hosts and voices that we have so many different perspectives brought to the table about different franchises and different games. So I love the different voices that we have, and it's a really good time working with them.
That's awesome. That's really cool. It's a cool thing looking at from outside. I'm like, this is a unique thing. That's pretty cool. So you mentioned some, but I don't know if you have any upcoming episodes you'd want to tease, or maybe past episodes you'd really recommend, favorite ones, either that you've gotten to do yourself or maybe other ones from people on the network that you really like.
Oh, for sure, yeah. So when I first joined, my first experience with Lore Party was when I co-hosted and produced some of our Halo episodes on the Halo games with my buddy and co-host Jaden. Jaden's a great guy, and he was my first co-host with Lore Party, so he was instrumental in kind of like, you know, getting me on board and showing me the ropes. And I had a great time doing the Halo episodes with him. I recommend going back and checking those out if you haven't yet. I really enjoyed the Halo episodes, and from there I went on to the Star Wars episodes. We covered games like Republic Commando. That was really fun for me. Jedi Knight. Fallen Order. We covered Fallen Order last year, so that was really good. That was a good time.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, check out the Doom episodes. We're dropping them right now. We just put out the new one today, October the 12th. So it just came out really recently. You know, when you're listening to this, probably maybe a week, not so recent, but no, it came out pretty recently. So we have 4 episodes out now. Most recently, we talked about how the Doom games sort of are inspired by traditional Western mythology, but also subvert some of the tropes of mythology. So we really went deep, and we also recently, Bruce and I, collaborated with another podcast host named The Motherlode. He is the host of a really cool show called In the Keep, which is all about retro first-person shooters, and we had a awesome conversation with him about Doom a little while ago. So I would highly recommend that as well. As far as what's coming up soon, we are actually planning something big for the launch of Cyberpunk 2077. I don't know how much I'm at liberty to discuss, but we do have some cool stuff in the works for that. We're planning some content based on Cyberpunk 2077 itself, but also the Cyberpunk genre in general. We'll be kind of just discussing Cyberpunk games that we really like, so keep an eye out for that. That's coming up soon. Also, I'm definitely not at liberty to divulge a lot of detail about something else, but I will just say keep an eye out for our Spider-Man episodes. They're going to get really interesting really soon. There's something really huge and really awesome coming up that you won't want to miss. Keep an eye out on our Spider-Man feed. It's going to be cool. So, yeah.
Awesome. Hell yeah, that's cool. I've been having fun listening to the Spider-Man episodes. I played that game earlier this year and really enjoyed it. That's awesome. I guess also, just in general, to get a vibe for your taste, what are some of your kind of favorite games that you like just hold in high regard?
Yeah. So just, I guess, from this year, I would say my game of the year so far has been Ghost of Tsushima. I'll be honest here. If you own a PS4, you have to play it. It's one of the greatest games I've ever played. I'm not even joking. It's a game changer. It's groundbreaking. It's the most immersive and vibrant open world I've ever experienced, and I love pretty much everything about it. So I really enjoyed Ghost of Tsushima lately. That kind of ate up my entire summer. I've been working from home. Like my day job has been completely remote since March. So I'm working from home, and I won't lie. Ghost of Tsushima has more than eaten up my lunch breaks. Let's just say it's kind of like distracting me a lot. Of course, Last of Us 2 was a big game for me this year. Also, I'm a huge fan of Last of Us, the first one, obviously, and I got a lot out of the Last of Us 2. I actually recently wrote a blog for the Lore Party website. I wrote about the Last of Us 2's launch, kind of like the controversy around that, kind of my takeaway from that. I just had some thoughts about like what I saw when The Last of Us 2 came out, and yeah, that was really fun to write. So check that out if you haven't. But those were probably like the 2 biggest games for me this year. But I've also been playing a lot of Among Us with friends lately. That's been pretty fun. It's just neat, nice. Silly little party game to pass the time. So I like that. And I have my eye on Star Wars Squadrons as well. I might be picking that up soon. Hopefully, doing some multiplayer with some of the Lore Party guys or whoever else. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been playing lately. Those are the big ones. Metro Exodus I played a lot too. I just recently played the DLC for Metro Exodus, the bonus chapters. So yeah, I could go on and on about what I'm playing right now, but those are probably the highlights.
No, that's awesome. That's really cool. Also, I second. People should check out that Last of Us 2 article. I really enjoyed reading it. I thought it was good stuff, for sure. So, highly recommend that. Yeah, I guess last thing I've got is where can people find you online? Where can people find Lore Party stuff?
Yeah, definitely. Loreparty.com is the website. Just LOREPARTY, loreparty.com. It's you can find all of the episodes there. You can find most of our contact information there. And also all of our blogs are there, including the one I wrote, but also the ones recently from Bruce wrote a really cool blog about how the quarantine kind of like helped him rediscover open world games. That was a really cool blog. We have some... it's all just perspectives from each of our hosts. Whenever one of us feels like writing something, we'll just throw a blog together and put it up, and they all just kind of come from a personal perspective. So I like that about our blog. But yeah, you can find all of our episodes there. All of our blogs are there. We're on Twitter at lore_party. We have a YouTube channel too. Definitely check that out. Just find Lore Party on YouTube. We put some episode clips there sometimes, like animations or gameplay footage over top of them. Neat little tidbits of episodes. We're also trying to do some more just original YouTube stuff. I think we're putting together an Among Us game that we played recently. We're going to put that on YouTube soon. That should be fun. And yeah, so keep an eye on that. My Twitter is just... Actually, let me look it up. You can, if you want to check me out on Twitter, my handle is at Conrad the Meh. That's Conrad, CONRAD, the Meh, MEH. Yeah, I mostly just post Lore Party stuff there. I retweet some things I like. I'm not super active. I'm not like hyper online on Twitter, but yeah, you can check me out there. You can hit me up. I'm not a don't be a stranger. I'm not a standoffish celebrity or anything. I'm just some guy. It's whatever. But one other thing I will put out there, I'm actually kind of working my way into the voiceover industry as well. I am doing some voice acting lessons with a coach. I've built up a few demos, and I might be launching a website soon. So that's also something you might notice about my Twitter or about my online presence. Yeah, and one last plug, I guess, if you are looking for voice work, check me out. Let me know. But yeah, that's me. That's all I got.
Hell yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, definitely check all of that stuff out for them. Highly recommend Lore Party. And Connor, thanks again for coming on. Super fun getting to chat about Days Gone with you.
Absolutely, man. Thanks so much for having me. This has been a blast, honestly. We don't usually go this long on Lore Party, so it was nice to really take the brakes off and just have a nice long chat. So this has been great. Thanks for having me on your show, man. Good times.
Yeah, hell yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, and then lastly, I guess for us, if you want to get in contact with us, you can do that on Twitter at StoryEverPod. Our website is TheGreatestStoryEverPlayed.com. That'll give you all our other episodes we've done stuff on. If you'd like to support the podcast financially, you can do that at patreon.com/TheGreatestStoryEverPlayed. For as little as $1 per month, that will give you access to topical episodes we've done, like our favorite Pokemon or our favorite games from childhood, stuff like that. But yeah, thank you so much for listening and for your support in general. And yeah, have a great day, everyone.
Take care.